from a defabricated garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA. This is Stand Up with Pete Dominic. On today's episode, how to keep your teenager from going down that OnlyFans rabbit hole. And also, puberty. And now, the podcast host who's got a new social media post he'd like to share, Pete Dominic!
Ho, ho, ho! Thank you, Pete Co. Very, very nice intro. That is a requested intro because today's guest, ladies and gentlemen, is a huge star on OnlyFans. Seriously. The platform where you can go naked and do things and make lots and lots of money, and she has. But before I get to her, I just want to say hi. Welcome to Taint Week. Happy Taint Week. It's the week between Christmas and New Year's. It's like the taint. It's between Christmas and New Year's. It's always going to be Taint Week because I personally named it that on my old Sirius XM show years ago because I never really knew. It needs a name this week. It's always a weird time. It's like a week where time stops and it feels like nothing really productive is going to get done. Nobody's returning calls or messages. Nobody should really have to do anything if they don't want to. That's why it's Taint Week. That's why it needs a name. That's why I've given it that name. If you got something better, I'm interested. What are you doing this week? If you're working, if you are having a, quote, normal week, email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. And if you email me by the end of Monday night, I'll try to give you a shout out and whatever you're doing. What are you doing this Taint Week? Standupwithpete@gmail.com. And I'll try to give you a shout on tomorrow's show. Now, I myself would like to give you permission just to sit around and watch your favorite shows and eat whatever you want and do whatever you want. Val and I are actually taking the girls skiing. How about that? We're taking a couple days skiing, and I'm real excited because we haven't done this in a really long time. So that's what we're going to do Wednesday through Saturday. So we'll be taking it a little easier on Taint Week ourselves. So hopefully you are, but let me know no matter what you are doing and how you're spending your time on Taint Week, and I'll try to read a few of them at least because you guys are always funny and thoughtful, and if you're working hard, you should get credit for it because you're never alone, folks. That's what I'm supposed to tell you. I'm supposed to make one of those hashtag videos my friend Essie Cup made for me, the You're Not Alone challenge started by Jewel, and she nominated me. I was like, yeah, okay. And then I spent all day thinking about what I should say on it. I was like, I don't know. I still haven't made it, but hopefully that'll get done. If you celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a wonderful time, morning. I hope you got presents. I hope you gave presents. I hope you got to spend it with people you love. We were very fortunate to have my parents down here, given the weather, given their age. They were here with us. We went out for Christmas Eve dinner. They came here for Christmas dinner. Val did a kick-ass job setting everything up and even made plans. She had us all painting. We all painted a snowman. It was so much fun. Val, the girls, me, and my parents. What an amazing activity. I'll have to post all of everybody's snowmen, and you can tell us which one you like the most. We've also been playing this game, Rummy's Cube. Rummy's Cube, I don't know how to pronounce it, but we've played a lot of that, which has been great fun as well. Ava got a trip to see her friend in Barcelona, Spain. Is that how you're supposed to say it? Does anybody know anybody in Barcelona that can look out for my girl over there? And Julia got a makeup fridge. I know, it's like this tiny little, somehow, I guess it's a little refrigerator. It's not a true refrigerator, but you put your face skincare products in it. It's ridiculous. But that's what she really wanted. They are 15 and almost 18, and we had an amazing Christmas with my family yesterday. And I hope that you did with yours, whoever you were with, wherever you were. I hope it was wonderful. Thank you for all the nice wishes from listeners as well and to each other. And specifically, shout out to Desiree and her family who sent me a bathrobe with the name Schmeat embroidered into the back of it. Kind of an inside joke for listeners of Stand Up, but that is the name that I gave my old fake producer who I killed which is sad. But he'll never die because now he has a bathrobe with his name embroidered in it, and it really gave me a laugh. I'll share pictures with that as well to subscribers in the subscriber email. But now it's time to get to my guest joining me today. You know, sometimes I get, well, pretty much every day, solicitations from publicists who want a person to come on Stand Up with Pete Dominic. It's a big show. A big name, let's be honest, folks. And they come on here and they get publicity. And so this guy sent me a pitch to interview this woman, Jazmen Jafar. She's a first-generation American. Her parents immigrated here from Iran. And she gave up her successful career as an attorney to sell nude images and videos on OnlyFans, which is an app, a platform, a social media platform. If you don't know about it, maybe you don't need to, maybe you don't care, but you're going to learn about it today because it's fascinating. Her parents immigrated to the United States from Iran. They worked really hard and gave her a great opportunity to pursue the, quote, American dream, it says. But her parents encouraged her to pursue one of the three professions that her culture associated with success: an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. That's what the Persian parents love. And so to please her parents, she became a lawyer. She graduates with a 4.0 GPA, passes the LSATs, gets a tuition-free full ride to attend a top-tier law school, and then she breezes through law school, passes the bar exam her first time, and while she's preparing to sit there for the bar exam, she discovers this app, OnlyFans, and started having second thoughts about her future that basically her family planned for her. And so she starts sharing nude photos online for little money. Then she never imagines, apparently, what can happen. It turns into a full-blown career. She's making six figures a month, and she's one of the 0.1% of the creators on that platform. It's ridiculous, making way more money than she would as a lawyer. And it brings up the questions about how we live and how we work and how do you feel about this way to make money? She says she feels liberated and free. We talk all about it, and I thought it was a unique and interesting opportunity to have this discussion with her on this Taint Week. I thought I'd do a little bit different things here during this week. I don't know, just because. And seeing as that robots are going to replace all our jobs probably in the near future, we might all be on OnlyFans selling our talents. But I thought this was a fascinating idea, so I looked into her. She's totally legit, and we connected. We had a pretty interesting conversation about what she's doing, what OnlyFans is, what the obstacles, the problems, the obvious social judgments of it all are, safety issues. Anyway, I think you're going to like it. All the links to Jasmine are in the show notes. And now I introduce you to Jazmen Jafar. Okay, there she is, Jasmine. So grateful to have you joining the show and really excited to talk to you. Thank you for being here.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Have you been doing a lot of interviews like this, talking about the work versus the actual work?
I have started. This is kind of early on in that process. So I left my job at my law firm almost 6-7 months ago. And that's when I started being really open about all of this and deciding that I want to go do this and be open with my story. So starting that right now, and I'm really excited about it.
There's no doubt that, doing an interview like this could be, good in terms of marketing, and maybe somebody will hear this and they'll end up signing up as a subscriber of yours, and good, fine. Everybody's a winner. But
works for me.
Yeah. But I feel like, because you're a really educated person and seemingly really confident from what we've been talking about before I hit record. I also feel like, and the reason I want to do the interview is to hear your perspective on all of this, your life and why you're doing it, and dispel some myths, maybe even change some judgments. How much of that is why you would want to talk to someone like me?
That is a huge part of it. That is a huge part of why I chose to be open with my story. And it kind of started because I was doing live streams on TikTok, et cetera, where I couldn't really talk about promote the sex work aspect of it. But then, you get those comments, and those comments are like, oh my God, this is so sad. She must not have any other talents, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, wow, this is common. This is a common narrative that people have around this work. And I want to be an example of somebody that kind of breaks those stereotypes and is an example of somebody who lives life on my own terms. And then I see with the rise of some of these online male gurus, in the manosphere, and they bring on these girls from OnlyFans, and they just they're not able to articulate their points well. And I'm like, I want to be on there. Like, I know what I would say. And so that's kind of what motivated me to start doing this and to start being that example.
I love manosphere. I'm definitely stealing that.
Manosphere. It's a word I didn't know before either.
That is really funny. Okay, so let's talk about your journey in your life. I think one of the most interesting things about you is your kind of ethnic background, your family's journey. Are you first generation, second generation?
Second generation. So both of my parents are immigrants from Iran. I was born in the United States.
Okay, but they grew up in Iran.
Yeah, both of my parents grew up in Iran.
And they are like highly educated types.
Yeah, so stereotypical Persian American life. And I think there's other immigrant cultures that are similar, but it was like my mom's a lawyer, dad's an engineer. My options were lawyer, doctor, engineer. And that was just like, I feel like for a lot of normal or like not normal American households, it's like, okay, your expectation is you go to high school, you go to college, or maybe even, and then you just do whatever. For us, it's like, no, high school, college, and then higher education,
right?
Medical school, law school, etc. I even remember at my high school graduation, I was like, all these other parents were so proud. I'm like, aren't you guys proud of me? They're like, no, what are we going to do? Not graduate high school? They're like, we'll be proud of you when you get your law degree or your medical, you become a doctor.
So yeah, so it wasn't that crazy for your family or for even Persian families in America to be pursuing a degree in medicine or law. And you got your degree.
I mean, my sister's a lawyer, my mom's a lawyer, like all my cousins are lawyers. Like it wasn't like the story I had where since I was a child, this is what I wanted to do, and I was like going to be the first person in my family to do it. It wasn't that.
Yeah, I don't want to fast forward too far, but I mean, I do know. You made a video on your YouTube channel I started watching about that your family knows what you're doing now.
Yes.
Which we'll get to that in a second.
My decision to tell them.
We'll come back to that. I just wanted to give the listener is wondering, how private you are, and it's not so private in a lot of ways. And obviously, you don't give certain information, so people can't find out about your past and, compromise other people, much less your family. It's smart, obviously. But how did you go to law school and you get your degree, you passed the bar, you're a really good student, and it didn't seem like it's that hard for you. Did you not really ever want to be a lawyer and you were just doing it? Or at what point did you just decide, I don't want to do this, at least not right now?
I think it was always in the back of my mind, and I like school and I'm very good at school. I'm a very intellectually curious person, and I like developing critical thinking skills, and a standardized test is pretty easy for me. So it was like, okay, my life is going great. My parents financially supported me. It was just kind of like I was like, okay, but then it's the closer I got to graduation, I was like, oh shit, now I'm going to have to actually be a lawyer. And I knew that lifestyle wasn't for me, but I was like, well, I'm here, and what else am I going to do? I almost felt like spoiled for thinking that. I was like, so many other people would kill to be in your shoes, and you're just like, oh, I'm like, oh, right. A lot of people don't like their jobs. Just get over it. So that's kind of what I was telling myself. But it was literally so weird because everyone else was so excited to graduate, and I didn't want to. I was literally trying to think I was like, can I go get an LLM after this? Maybe I can convince my parents to get a PhD. Then they'll keep supporting me financially, and I can just keep going. I wanted to go to school for the rest of my life.
That's not uncommon. That's not that uncommon. I mean, I think that makes sense. I think that probably makes sense for a lot of people that enjoy school and they're good at school and want school to be their job. And it's not, the worst ambition in the world either, but go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was pretty much it. But people were just so excited to pass the bar and graduate. I remember the day I took the bar, I started bawling because I was like, oh my God, that was the last test that I ever took. And now I thought my life was over. I was like, okay, now I'm just going to go in every day, go into my 8 to 5, try to meet my billable requirements. And that's going to be the rest of my life, and that's what I thought kind of. But at that time I had already the ball was kind of rolling on this stuff. So all
right. Let's talk about the ball and how it was rolling. Okay. How do you get into this? Are you first into other social media, posting pictures? What was your introduction to?
Yeah. So it's crazy. I actually had no social media prior to 2021 when I started.
Really?
I didn't have an I had no digital footprint at all.
Why not?
I just wasn't in, I just didn't want an Instagram. Like I saw other people and they spent so much time. And I kind of literally in my head, I was like, I would never do this unless I'm making money off it. And I stuck with that. But it wasn't, I didn't use it. I didn't go on TikTok. I didn't do any of this stuff. And then OnlyFans kind of became a thing in 2020 with the pandemic. And I was like, oh, this is cool that women are able to, because, you know, you kept hearing these stories about women making crazy money off doing this. And I didn't have any kind of like moral opposition to it. But I also was like, okay, well, this isn't for me. Like, I'm going to be a lawyer, like, you know. And then 2021 came and I was studying for the bar exam and I had a little bit of time before I would get those results and start working. And I knew I didn't want, like, I literally was like lying to my parents, like, oh, the pandemic, I can't fill out resumes, like blah, blah, blah. Cause I just didn't want to start this life, even though I had technically worked my whole life for it.
Right.
And it was like, I was kind of like spiraling in a way. I was just like, oh, like shit, like, this is it. And like I was thinking of what kind of job I would want. And then I got like the perfect law job that I could ask for, like good work-life balance. I liked everybody there and I still didn't want to do it. And I was like, cause I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to be a lawyer, but you know, that was the path I was on. And I had crossed the finish line and I was like, oh, I don't want to be here.
Well, I think probably a lot of people hear that and they relate to having kind of their whole future laid out, certain lanes that you can take, certain expectations that your parents have, resources that you have. And they do that because either it's safe or it's expected of them. But a lot of people relate to that also and say they get to a point either that early as where you are or at some point 10 years in and go, I don't want to do this. Which brings us to what you're doing now. So, I mean, what are you doing now? What is OnlyFans? There's a lot of us old fogies that haven't actually signed up. It would seem, you know, I've been there. I've seen like some woman that I get fed on TikTok or Instagram, and then I click on her profile, and then I see, oh, and it's interesting to me just from the standpoint of, oh, this is how they're monetizing it. They bring you in on this platform over to a paid platform. Hey, that's exactly what I do with my podcast. So, but the point is, I've never done it. So I have a lot of kind of, you know, basic questions about it. So how would you, though, before I ask any, explain how you got into it and how you're doing so well with it? What is it exactly, OnlyFans?
Yeah, so it is like, it doesn't have to be this, but like there are people who technically like have OnlyFans just to like post workout and like, you know, cooking videos, but it's kind of known for being a platform that also allows you to sell and post explicit content. So think of it as like a Patreon, but that allows that raunchy, explicit type of content. So people can subscribe and see. So a lot of girls that do like Instagram have like their little bikini pictures or whatever, but they're like, okay, I can't post this explicit version here. But if you go over to my OnlyFans,
right,
paywall, then you have access to that content.
Yes. I'm thinking about if I should offer something through Patreon, but I realize that nobody wants to pay for any. You
will be surprised.
Any explicit.
I would say this is definitely an industry where women are doing better than.
Do you know any men?
Not that you aren't very attractive.
Do you know any men that do it, that much less make money, that isn't like a gay thing? Meaning, do women pay to see explicit photos of men?
There are accounts where men will post a bunch of content with different girls, and that is kind of like their brand, right? They'll have like a huge dick and they're like, okay, I'm fucking all these bitches and you guys can subscribe and see me do that. So yeah, and there are couples, there's definitely couple pages that that's very
well. I am out on both accounts. No one, I've got nothing to offer. Okay, so we'll move past the men thing and talk about your own experience. Okay, so you've, I think, explained kind of what it is, but why would I pay for it? What is it about? How have people been able to monetize this versus free porn, where you can really see anything you want at all on the internet now? How do you get to OnlyFans and making real good money?
So I think a lot of people, they want that closer one-on-one connection with the content they're consuming. I hear that a lot. Oh, I'm bored with watching porn. I'm bored with this. I'm bored with that. And now they get to engage with you. They get to ask you maybe for specific things they're interested in seeing. And there's like, they're very attracted to your specific look. I mean, there's like for everybody, like redheads, you know, brunette, blonde, skinny, short.
Yeah, but I mean, that's on porn too.
I know, but it's kind of like, also, I think that girl next door vibe is something people really like, with that, like, instead of like the stereotypical porn with the lights and everything is kind of looks very like fake. I think some people don't like that. Even I know there's amateur stuff out there, but it's kind of like, oh, this is a really hot girl on Instagram. I want to see her. And I think there's also an aspect of it that there's a lot of girls doing this that wouldn't otherwise be doing it, like me, without this platform. So it's kind of like you get to see that girl you had a crush on, or that hot chick from your school that wouldn't be in the porn industry, but now she is an OnlyFans, and you can kind of like go check her out in this way that you would never be able to do otherwise.
I guess. I mean, I still feel like a lot of what you described is kind of available on porn. But I know that I'm not disagreeing with you. I know that you're doing well. I know that lots of people are making good money on this. I know it's a huge thing, which is why I really wanted to talk with you about it. But I guess maybe you can give me some of kind of the examples of the kind of transactions that you have with your, what do you call them? Subscribers?
Yeah, subscribers, fans. Kinda. It's called OnlyFans, so it's like fans, but I call them kind of subscribers or followers.
I mean, also, let me just ask you this first before we get to that. It's a safe form of sex work. Do you call it that?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty safe form of sex. It's also a safe way. I mean, especially with all this talk we have right now about, the dangers of porn. And if you're watching porn, you're complicit in the exploitation of women or trafficking or child exploitation. OnlyFans kind of eliminates all those problems. Now, I don't think that's a huge contributing factor to why men sign up for it. Like, they're not like, instead of watching porn, I'm going to make sure that, this is really safe content. But I think that is a really great thing about the platform.
Yeah, the nobility of the porn, where you're getting your fan.
Exactly.
Is probably...
If that's something that weighs on your mind. I mean, we just had Kanye talk about this, right? He's like, whenever you watch this, you're just watching somebody relive their trauma, or you're watching there's even the argument to ban porn from Twitter because they're like, there's all this child or people underage or people that haven't consented, revenge porn issues.
Yeah.
OnlyFans kind of eliminates all that.
Well, what are your concerns then? What do you have to be careful about? I guess that's the best way of asking this question, because I could sit here and go, well, what if this happened? What did that happen? But you're there. It's your brand. It's you behind the camera. You're running this business. What are you concerned about? And I mean, like, for your safety, for your privacy, even for the privacy of people who know you, your family, who probably, for whatever reason.
Yeah, you don't want to post any kind of like identifying, things in those. So like, if I post a picture or video, I make sure that I don't have a package in the background with my name and address on it.
Oh God, that would be a really idiotic thing.
Oh yeah. Oh no, because that's happened. But I realized it before I posted. I was like, let me move that.
Oh God, yeah.
Besides that, but I think it's similar to any kind of social media influencer, in a sense. I mean, all of us. I mean, probably even you. Like, what steps do you take to protect your privacy? Kind of the same stuff we do. Oh,
I mean, I think I think it's all different. I mean, for sure, it's different. My standard would be probably far lower than your standard. I mean, I have to worry about my family, and people might not like certain things I say, but it doesn't really.
So any kind of controversial, even like influencer and stuff, like, I mean, I get negativity kind of around what I do, but I'm not one of those, like, I'm not in an industry where I'm constantly getting death threats, or like I'm a really extreme political figure that,
So do you, what, have you had any concerns? Have you felt unsafe or uneasy in any of how long have you been doing it?
A year and a half now.
So yeah. Any issues?
Yeah, no, nothing. Wow. I mean, personally, I don't say that's the case for everybody, or nobody else has had any kind of safety or privacy concerns. But for me, safety, I haven't had any issues or fears. I try to be careful, but it's not something I have felt like was ever compromised so far.
So yeah, so how does it work? How much are you working? What is it like? You go on and you make videos. You're making videos, and people. You're a filmmaker in a way. I mean, you're making content, I guess. What are you doing? How much of it are you doing, and how does it?
So it is. So people think of it as just like easy money and you don't do anything. But I put in more hours now than I did when I was working full time as a lawyer. And for a while I was doing like the double life, where I was doing that in the day and I would spend all my evenings and weekends filming content. So it is definite. And it depends on the creator. Some girls, they do it as a side hustle and they post a couple times a week. You're kind of in control of how much you want to put out and how much you want to work. but you have to promote. So a lot of us, we run all these different social media platforms to kind of promote ourselves.
Sure. Yeah. I get that.
Exposure. And then we also have to make the extra content for just our pages. So there's a lot of filming and content and a lot of like creativity involved. Like, I've been on it for a year and a half now. I'm like a solo creator, so I don't have anyone doing it with me. I'm like, I've done everything under the sun that I can think of by myself that I'd be willing to do. And so I'm constantly like, okay, what can I do now? Maybe I should go to the pool and like shoot something, or, you are constantly trying to think of new ways to stand out or put out content.
Do some people have sex with other actual people?
Yes. There's
probably a lot.
I don't do that, but a lot of people do that. And that is probably the number one most requested type of content on there is people, they call it BG, which is boy girl content, or GG if it's girl girl, BB boy boy. And that is the number one thing people usually want to see. But
do you have you have a line again? You won't do that.
No, it's not that I won't do it. It's just that I don't leave my house. So I don't know who to make it with. There's nobody I want to have sex with, much less do it on camera. So I guess for me, it's just not something. I don't push myself. And that's a big thing for me is I don't push myself to do things I don't want to do just for this. So for me, it just hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't happen.
You need to combine with some other creator.
I know. So people do collabs, and I do have other friends, girlfriends that do this. And we I've done one video where we took a shower together or something, but I'm also straight. So I didn't want to just do stuff with a girl just for my OnlyFans page when I didn't want to.
How do you talk a little bit about, raising daughters is awesome. I love it. I try really hard to understand as much as I can about their lives from their point of view. Talk a little bit about your own relationship with your own body, which is mostly so it's your body, exactly. and you're doing things to yourself, I'm guessing. Exactly. But number one is being naked in front of people. We can start there. Being naked and sexual is something different. When did you become comfortable with your body to put it out there and with it being sexual in nature to put that out there?
So I've always kind of been comfortable with my body. That was never something that I was insecure about or that was never a concern. So for me, I'm a very I think it's the law school. I'm a very analytical. I think about everything in trying to critically think about things. So for me, it was kind of okay, there's this thing. I'm very comfortable with it, but everybody else says I shouldn't be comfortable with it or that there's something wrong with it. And I'm okay, why? And then I think about it. And I'm I don't see a good reason for this.
Sure.
And that was kind of for me, I was the only thing kind of stopping me from this is just stigma and other people's opinions. But I like it. I'm comfortable with it. I'm happy doing it. And I can make great money doing it. So why would I let that stop me?
Well, that's great that you've always kind of felt comfortable with your self-image in terms of moving through space, I suppose. Right? Because, women and body image, men now, of course, there's a lot on that as well. But just body image, you're always worried. I'm worried. I worry about my daughters. They were.
No, I think, and I hear it's crazy. So there's some women who say it's completely boosted their confidence.
Sure.
Doing this. Yeah, and then there's some women who say, oh no, it didn't. But I think one thing is that a lot of women were harder on ourselves or other women than men are. That's one thing I noticed is when I started, I was oh my God, you have to be picture perfect. You can't have any cellulite, stretch marks. That men do not care. A lot of men do not care about, you have a stretch mark here or, this here. And I think that's part of the reason OnlyFans is really popular is because women just showing their real bodies, and we're seeing that people like that. People want to see that. People don't always want to see everything.
But you could see, but I could imagine, and I know you kind of touched on this. I mean, of course, I'm sure you get plenty of, we can talk about this kind of comments from people that are just awful people saying awful things because you're doing this. They're just shaming you for doing this. But I can also imagine that there are people who might not be shaming you for doing this, but somehow critical of your body. And that might be that over and over, the same kind of comment. That beats the best of us.
Yeah,
I mean, doesn't that get in your head?
It definitely can, and I know that there are creators who do deal with there. There are platforms that seem to be more friendly, and platforms that seem to be likely to get more and more of those comments. Like sometimes we all talk about it. Sometimes your videos will just hit the wrong algorithm, and you'll just get like a shit ton of hate on them. So
yeah, how do you deal?
Yeah, and that is definitely something like when I think about it, or when someone asks me, because a lot of girls, especially younger girls that are like 22, 21. And they see what I'm doing and they see how much money I'm making. And they're like, oh my God, I just want to do this. I just want to jump into it. And I'm like, wait a second. There are things you need to be prepared for. You do need to have tough skin because you're doing something by default that is controversial. So you have to deal with that pushback. You are putting yourself out there in a very vulnerable way. And you have to be okay with that criticism and pushback. So if you're somebody that will be very affected by these kinds of things, that's maybe something that you need to think about. For me, it doesn't bother me a lot, especially like the just regular criticism. I like it because I think it allows me an opportunity to open up those discussions. You're open up room for those debates. Like someone's like, oh my God, it's so sad you're doing this. You don't have any self-respect. I'm like, okay, great. Let's talk about it. What is self-respect? What does self-respect mean to you? Why do you think morality is correlated with, modesty or let's go through this. And then that allows me the ability to kind of push back against this narrative.
Well, anybody who says that to you doesn't realize that you've thought these things through already.
I think about these things.
Sure, no,
all
it's
the
great.
time.
It's great. It sounds like a really important. I mean, you're a lawyer and you come from, a family with educational values, which makes you a critical thinker. You're always questioning things. But it sounds like you've kind of answered all of these criticisms and concerns before almost that you got into this. And you said, I think before I hit record, I think you just mentioned one of them, that you also have some arguments as to why someone shouldn't do OnlyFans or something like it. I think you just mentioned one or two there, but any other reasons why you would say to somebody, hey, this is probably not the best idea for you?
Yeah. So the number one,
like, what if you have aspirations to run for office?
So yeah, exactly. So that's definitely one thing is you need to think about, unfortunately this is the case, but there are career fields or there are jobs, there are doors that you will be forever, potentially forever closing by going into this industry. So that is something you definitely want to think about. And I think especially when you're 20, if you're younger, 18, 19, you're like, oh my God, I can make all this money. But your dream is to be, a third grade teacher or, some type of job that they would look at this and be like, okay, we don't want to hire you. You need to be prepared for that. So for me though, I didn't want to there are plenty of law firms that probably wouldn't hire me now, but I didn't want to work there. That's why I quit to do this. So for me, it's different, but that's something you should definitely think about. I think the number one thing you should think about is, does this align with your values? Like to me, I did a lot of work about that. I was like, okay, what are my values? Is this going to give me that kind of conflict? Will I feel ashamed for doing this? Kind of, is this something that's going to make me feel like I shouldn't be doing this and I'm doing this because of whatever reason? And that to me that's a reason you shouldn't do it. I think you really need to dig deep. I'm actually doing a whole video on kind of sex work and morality and what I think about it. And for me, I don't find it doesn't violate any moral principle I live by. But if, let's say, you believe that your body should be, kept you shouldn't be showing it off to the world, then don't do it just because, you want to make money or for whatever reason. I think you need to dig deep inside yourself, be like, what are my principles? What do I stand for? Does this align with my values as a person? And if for you, the answer is no, I would be careful. Also, if you're just somebody that doesn't want anybody to ever, because there are girls that are like, I want to do it, but I don't want anybody ever to see it. I'm like, people are it's the internet. I literally am like, okay, if you don't want your grandma who doesn't know how to use Google to see it, okay, fine. But if you don't want anyone that's ever worked with you, anyone who ever went to school with you, especially if you actually become successful on it, that means you have more exposure and that means people are going to find it.
Yeah, no, I was reading about it in preparation to talk with you. There's a really good Vice article that I'll link to that talks about women who are nurses or teachers, and they were doing this on the side, and they found out, and they got fired or suspended, or could not work in certain professions again. And the article makes the point. I think a lot of the women make the point. It's like all the people that judged us and fired us, and were talking about us at work, were watching porn. It's a really
100%.
weird thing when you're judging someone for doing it. Would be exactly like saying playing baseball is a terrible thing to do, and then you go to a baseball game and pay to watch.
Oh, I know. Especially when I was just on Reddit and people are like, aren't you afraid that you're like, someone's going to find out and tell you? I'm like, they're going to have to explain what they were doing on Busty Brunettes on Reddit when they found me, like, it's weird. It's like almost most people, especially most men, consume this kind of content. But then you have this kind of.
Oh, I was looking at my son's computer and he had this up and we had to have a talk about.
For people that make it, right? And a lot of that has to do with kind of the shame that, depending on which like the culture you're from, like I would say I notice for sure, like cultures that are more repressed, they have so much more shame surrounding this, and even the way they interact with you is different than I think Europe. They think we're really uptight about this stuff, and they're like super like.
Well, let's get into then your story, because the Persian people, even generations removed, are not known for their open-mindedness on sexuality, right?
Exactly. So there's not a lot of Middle Eastern creators that do this, but I have been overwhelmed with the amount of messages from people coming from like a culture I did that are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I don't want to be a doctor either, or I'm gay, or I also have something about me that is kind of going against cultural norms and expectations, but I'm just so scared. Because another thing with our culture is that it's a very, in the West, it's more like individualistic. In our culture, it's like collective. Like you do something, it brings shame on your whole family. Your whole family is very connected. It's not like when you're 18, your parents are like, okay, bye. Like they're so embedded in your life that you almost live for them. Like a lot of us, we don't have the opportunity to self-actualize. We're like actualizing the dreams of our parents. But we love them so much and they love us so much that it's very hard. And I still struggle with this, where you feel that guilt and shame and you're like, I can't break free from that. Like you
feel that way right now about the work that you're doing on OnlyFans because your family knows. Like that's what I was you made a really.
I mean, they know kind of, but like, okay, the thing is my parents do not know that people even post like they think I'm like posting like, sexually like suggestive photos. They don't know like the extent of what. I don't even think they know that exists.
But they know that you're making good money.
Yes, they do.
I
think right now they kind of have like a don't ask, don't tell policy. Like they're like, we don't want to know about it, but they realize there's nothing they can do to really stop me. And so I can't say this will be the case for everybody, but I'm an advocate for like, you kind of have to have the balls and you just got to stand up for yourself and you got to be like, I'm doing this. I want to live a life conducive to my values and my happiness. And your parents things are probably going to blow up for a while, but a lot of times things come like, unless they are really going to disown you for life, things are going to get better. And now everything's fine.
Well, I mean, that would obviously be not worth it, right? Like it depends on who you are. It depends
on who you are. And I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, I think that the only person that's going to live your life is you, and your parents aren't going to be here forever. And if you want to live for them and you want to do, especially for us, because it's not, usually the thing is our parents aren't just like, oh, be a good person, etc. Our parents are like, no, be a lawyer, go do this. Like they want to control your career. They want to control like who you're with and everything. Like to this day, I mean, even now that I have an OnlyFans, I was like, I don't have a tattoo. And I'm like, maybe I should get a tattoo. My parents like, oh no, absolutely not. Like,
that's funny. That's where they draw the line.
Do you really want to live that kind of life? Or I have, like even my sister one time, she was like, oh, you're choosing this over your family. I'm like, no, I'm not. Because if like OnlyFans came to me and was like, in order to be here, you have to cut off communication with your family, I would say no. But if I'm making a decision for myself and my body, and it doesn't matter who you are, you have to at least respect that I'm going to.
I understand. The converse of what you're saying is that, no, they're deciding to end their relationship with me. It's not like that's their decision. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Now, what about I guess I just did think of the idea of, you seem like a really layered person, creative, critically thinking, educated, obviously person. But like, is there purpose here for you? This way to make money sounds like really flexible. And it sounds, in your case, at least, I'm sure it's not this way with everybody, but very lucrative. Yeah. You're your own boss, hours, all the flexibility around it. But I mean, do you feel a purpose out of it? Do you like doing it? Do you think you can do it for?
I didn't necessarily expect that part, but I get messages all the time, people saying like, hey, I just went through like a divorce, or I work all day in like a hot kitchen, or I have and your content is kind of like the highlight of my day. And that's just that aspect of it. But that search for purpose is also one of the reasons that I kind of shifted and am doing more of this kind of work. And I'm getting those messages that are like, hey, like you really inspire me because I'm afraid to come out to my parents about this, or I come from a similar culture as you, or thank you for talking about this. Or so to me, that is part, like I'm getting I'm getting way more purpose out of this than I was just helping like rich people avoid paying taxes.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's hilarious. Well, if that was the kind of
lawyer job,
know? Yeah. So that makes, I mean, yeah, that's a good answer, I guess. I mean, the idea that especially other people could be empowered. I mean, that seems like a lot of what this interview will do, and what you kind of want to be able to do is empower other people.
I have a platform now. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I have like a platform now that I never would have had when I was a lawyer. And I actually like do streams where I explain like legal doctrine to like a bunch of men who probably, or whoever that probably would never, like, I'm like, I did a stream on like hate speech. I did a stream on, just when the Dobbs decision came out, because I have this audience and I'm like, oh, this is how our laws work. Here are some of this. So it's like weird. It's like I almost became like a weird Twitch law professor in some ways, trying to explain these issues and how our system works, and kind of these
whatever
we have in law school to a bunch of people, and nobody that I graduated with has that kind of platform or has that capability to like engage the kind of people that I'm engaging with that would otherwise not be interested in any of this.
Yeah, whatever it can take to fight apathy, wherever people can learn things, however they can learn them. We all learn differently. I'm for that. So if you're,
I know I get it all the time. Like, oh, I'm going to be live here. And then people will come. They're like, I just came for the titties, but this is actually I feel like I'm getting educated. This is a really sexy educational stream. Like, I'm telling you, if you just like throw on a bikini and you want to talk about the economy or healthcare,
there is that, right? I mean, there definitely is. Like, I think the funniest kind of most overt one is like women who love to fish. And it's just women in bikinis, like catching fish. And that for a lot of men those are popular accounts. I laugh because no matter what you're into, if an attractive woman does it naked or scantily clad, you're like, yeah, I'd like to.
Tune in. Yeah. We just have the ability to get a much larger audience because people are going to initially want to tune in because of that. And then I can talk about whatever I want.
Okay, I guess this is my one maybe self-indulgent question, and maybe some people might think when they hear me say it is somewhat inappropriate, but I don't really care. Like, I've always wondered. Yeah, I know you're not going to be worried about it. I've always just wondered how sexuality plays a role for you. Like, if you're watching porn or you're thinking about pornography, it's actually, people having sex. And I'll literally think about, maybe I'm boring, maybe I'm curious, like they're like, how often does this person do a sex scene? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Do they enjoy it? Are they insatiable? Is it just work? Do they have, quote, normal sex? Are they exclusive and monogamous? I'm not asking you to answer all those questions. I'm asking you to tell me about, like, and this is why it might be, some people might like, maybe you didn't need to ask her, but I don't care. Like, how much does your own sexuality play a role in what you're doing? Because you kind of commented on that, and it's like, a lot of it's got to be acting. Like, I'm sure you're not always like sexually aroused or in the mood to do this or that, especially if it's a specific request from a fan or something. Yeah. So, like, what role does your own sexuality play in it, and how does it affect your own personal sex life, I guess, is the more personal question, but I've always thought that was interesting.
So it's, when it comes to affecting my own personal, it's completely, I feel like it hasn't affected it at all. Everything's been the same, normal. Now, about putting on an act, you do have to do that to an extent, but I mean, it's different, creators are different. I kind of am very upfront. Like, I don't go on there and I'm like, hi, like, I don't always play into the fantasy. I'm kind of just myself. And I make that very clear to my fan base, who are like, oh, can we get on a call? And we're both like, get really turned. I'm like, I'm not going to I'm honest about that. When I film like my solo content, I try to like do it at a time where I am by myself and I do feel those things, and I try to make it as authentic as possible. But sometimes there are things that people are into. Like, I have learned all kinds of kinks and fetishes that I did not know before.
Like, name a couple, because you were talking about this off air, and it's kind of funny, but I'm not.
So one thing that's very popular, and this is a video that these are videos that I didn't initially. Now I actually really like making them. It's called JOIs, which are like jerk off instructions. And I at first was like, what the fuck is this? I had to look up like how somebody did it. And now I do them all the time, and they're very popular. Like boob focused ones, like with dildos, all different kinds of things. Another thing, like this goes back to your earlier question.
I don't understand that. I'm sorry. Jerk off instructions, like you're giving instructions how to do it.
I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm telling them exactly how to jerk off to me, and like doing a countdown and everything. Like, it's very, very popular. Another thing, and
that doesn't sound that weird.
No, it's not. I don't want to say it's weird, but it's something that I had never done like before doing this, or just other kinds of.
Fair enough. Well, yeah.
I mean, if you want to get to some of the weird ones, there's also what is it called? CEI, which is cum eating instructions, where people want you to. Yeah. So see, I if you want to know the weird stuff, I can tell you the weird stuff. But
no, I'm all for any of it. Whatever you say, I'm going to react. But I just thought before I hit record, you said say the one about the plates.
Oh, somebody today wanted me to just like wear an apron and just smash like a bunch of plates. I've had people that want me to just like, an earlier one, this was step on a bug with my bare feet. Like, people just have
that seems weird, evil.
Things that, and I mean, those two I'm declining, but
yeah, like, I think you have to decline. I'm going to decide this one for you, Jasmine. You have to decline killing living things for their arousal.
I'm terrified of bugs, but I was telling my friend, and the amount of money this person was willing to pay me, they're like, I would fucking do it. I will step on a fucking tarantula with my bare feet.
I should say about that one, I've got my price too. How much do you want me to step on a spider for? That would be hard. That would be hard for me. I think I'd be haunted.
Like an ant, maybe.
I know. I have this weird thing like that when I shot and killed a bird with a BB gun when I was like, I don't know, 15. And it stuck with me because it was like totally recreational. I was just doing it for, no reason. It's one thing if people are hunting. And like, I feel like every bad thing that's happened in my life, and I've had a great life, but like sometimes I'm like, it's because I killed that bird for no reason. It haunts me. And that's what.
I used to take basketball and like kill all the ants.
Oh my God.
I don't know what I was doing. I would just walk around every time I see an ant. I would just. Pop.
You're genocidal.
Maybe this was like when I.
Maybe that's somebody's kink. Could you get a basketball?
All kinds of, and another thing is OnlyFans will not allow certain types of role player fetishes, and those are ones I wouldn't really do anyway. Some people want me to be like fucking Steven Spielberg, and they're like, okay, can you do this scene where you like come in and you pretend to be this, and then the scene cuts to like another version. I'm like, no, I don't have I don't have the acting skills, I don't have the camera skills. But there are people who want really specific types of content. And then this is what I was mentioning that kind of plays into what you were asking me before about why men sign up for this, is very popular, is people want me to like rate them, or like rate their dick rates are very, very popular.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Want to ask them, huh?
They want you to rate them,
like their
dick specifically.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I probably have 50 of these a day.
You get paid. People will pay you to rate their dick.
Oh yeah, I'm
in. I'll do that. I'll rate
myself fully off just that.
But I don't. That's crazy. That's okay. That might explain something though about men and taking
exactly. And
what do you think?
About it earlier.
Yeah. Because to me, I don't know what makes you particularly
the arbiter of what.
Well, yeah, but it's more about, it has to be that they want to live in a world where they know that you saw their dick, which is why probably I've never understood this, but I'm sure there's mental health research about this kind of thing, without judgment again, but it's pretty fucked up. But like, why guys just take their dicks out, which apparently happens a lot more.
Or send unsolicited pictures. Well,
or send, right.
This is an outlet where it's not as unsolicited because you signed up and you kind of paid to show me it.
So you think the reason why you get so many of those, or why anybody would get so many of those, is what? That they just want to know that you've seen it?
I think there's multiple reasons. So some people just have like a fetish, or they get turned on by exposing themselves to women or to anybody. Or they'll be like, look at what you did to me. And they'll send me like a video. So they'll send me a video. It's called even like a cum tribute. And that means that they will like Yeah, it like people are into this stuff, and it's a way for, I think, men to be like, oh, I really want to show her this, and OnlyFans is a way that they can do that. There's also a lot of men that are, they don't know, they think like, okay, this is a woman that is attractive, and I want to know, am I good enough? Like some men who don't do maybe well with women, and I try to be honest about this, especially when I'm talking like in a live stream setting, when people are like, how big, what's a good size? What kind of dick do you want? Do you like this? Do you like that? They think that their issue is that their penis isn't good enough, whatever. And so they kind of, I don't want to call it an insecurity, but in a sense it is like, hey, like, would you fuck me? Here's how I look. Like, would you do it? What's wrong with it? What's your preference? Do you wish it was bigger? Do you wish it was this? Would you like, that's kind of, that's a big component of it too.
What do you think? Psychoanalyze that. What do you think that's about?
I think that there are a lot, there always have been, but I think it's also more and more prominent for a bunch of other reasons. I'm really interested in this, so we can get into that. I don't know if we have time. That men that feel like they are kind of like almost disenfranchised. They feel like they're not doing well with women. They feel like women don't like them. They're not getting dates. They're not getting sex. And so they're trying to figure out why. And I think the porn industry keeps showing the same way it does for women, that this is how you need to look, and you need to have like a 12-inch dick or whatever. And then they're like, hey, am I good enough? Is there something wrong with me? Can you tell me? Because they think I would know, which isn't necessarily true. And so, a lot of men are taught, or they, if they don't have real life experience and they're just getting all their information from porn, they think like, oh, this is how I need to look, and this is how my dick needs to look in order for women to like me, or like in order to be able to satisfy women. So they're like, hey, look at me. Would I be able to satisfy you? It's a question they have. It's an insecurity they have.
I know, but it's like, what are you supposed to say? You're going to be like, you're never going to say no, but it's not an authentic question or experience like a fan.
And I do try to be honest about it. Like if someone asks me for like an actual just rate, I will give them a rate. But when people like try to ask me like, hey, what are you into, or blah, blah, I'm like, or is this good enough? Or would you fuck a guy with only 6 inches or 7? Like, and I'm like, yes. I'm like, but let me tell you guys something. By the time we see your penis, we're moving forward. Like, it's not like, it's not like we're going to just get there and then be like, oh, it's if only it was an inch bigger.
There's always been issues with insecurity and anxiety around women. Everybody has that. Every guy has that. Women have that, of course. But it's like with the internet, it gives you just so many different ways to, there's a lot of trade-offs. I think there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, but it seems like,
exactly.
Like, are you immune to pretty much all of it? Does any of it, do you have, like, at the end of the day, is there an end of your day? I mean, do you just, like, are you able to compartmentalize the types of things people say, the types of fantasies that people have about you? What would you say to somebody who's uncomfortable with someone fantasizing about someone they love?
What do you mean fantasizing?
I don't know. I should have taken more time on that question. I guess you're like, I've seen these OnlyFans, men who are okay with their wives doing it, or maybe a parent being okay with their child doing it. But like, how does it feel to know that so many people are fantasizing about you? Is it good, bad, indifferent?
To me, it doesn't like, and that's one thing that I like when you talk about this being empowering. I think in a way it is empowering, but for some reason, I feel like when it comes to this kind of work in particular, people are really like, okay, it's either empowering or it's degrading, where it's like any other profession, like being a lawyer, et cetera. No one's like, oh, do you feel empowered doing this? Like, how do you feel like, so many people are consuming this kind of content from you? It really, like, I don't think about it. I think with the internet, it's really easy. Like, it's just like user 3347. Like, I'm not like going around my day like, oh, user 3347 is jerking off to my content. I just think of it as like any kind of, and I'm very sex positive, sex open. So I'm like, I just think of it as any other type of product or service that I'm selling. And I don't care, I guess. It doesn't make me feel good or bad. It's just neutral. It's like any other service or product that anybody else is selling. Like, some people are like, you're exploiting men's desire first. I'm like, isn't a restaurant exploiting your desire to eat? Isn't any good or service exploiting your need or desire for it? Like, to me, it's like any other thing. And it's a very natural thing. So I don't think about it in those terms.
I would just say, like, if we want to get into the scale of judgment, mm-hmm. I would judge someone who works at, say, Frito-Lay, a company that makes junk food and snack food, or sugar, a candy company, or all these stores now that are popped up everywhere. They just sell sugar and candy. Like, that's a less noble and more poisonous way to make your living. Even if you live in the suburbs and you have 2.5 kids and a dog and a fence and a pool, well, you sell liquor, you sell sugar, you sell.
Yeah. And I make this point a lot, I think. And for a lot of people, it's like, if they have a problem with, or they feel some type of shame with, they have an unhealthy relationship with food, or they have an unhealthy relationship with alcohol, it's hard for them to project that onto the alcohol and be like, you shouldn't have looked so good and made me want to drink you. But with us, it's kind of like, oh, you are inciting this lust in me. And I feel like, it's natural, but I don't want to feel it. And now I feel it. Now I'm mad at you. You turn me on. It's your problem, not my problem. You're destroying society. It's interesting how much people are just.
Well, I just want to be clear to people listening. I wasn't judging necessarily people who even work at a tobacco company. Like I'm saying, or a missile making company or a bullet or gun making company. I mean, I'm always judging everybody, to be clear, Jasmine. But like all I'm saying is, like, if you do that and you're judging Jasmine or someone making money on OnlyFans, maybe you need to take a harder look at how you're making money. That's all I was saying. Like, it's a weird thing. There's a lot of just contradictions and hypocrisy in the way people look at sex work in general, but even more specifically, OnlyFans, because you're not actually meeting with people. All right, I guess the last question I'm just kind of curious about, well, actually, I think it's a valid question. Like, I'd be worried about this with someone I cared about. And I've gotten to care about you in this hour. Like, I want you to be happy, as far as that goes. So I want you to be able to have healthy relationships, intimate relationships, partnerships, whatever you prefer, whatnot. And one might say this makes it harder, or maybe something that's counterintuitive. It makes it easier. But like, have you had, and maybe you don't want to answer that because you want to keep a fantasy going. I'm sure a lot of people don't want to know that if you're in a committed relationship or something, keep that going because they got to.
I'm open about it. Okay. I'm not. I haven't had any issues like the type. So there's all types of. There's billions of people in this world, right? And there are people there are men that aren't going to be okay with. There's plenty of men that are fine with it too. So those are usually the ones I interact with. I haven't had any issues with it, and the world is changing. It is kind of going in this direction, and even academia, we all know leans left. So I have gotten no pushback from people that way. It's actually lawyers that reach out to me the most, and because they know how miserable a lot of lawyers are. They're like, great job, great decision. I'm totally for it, et cetera, et cetera. It's usually people that are so far removed from the corporate world or the law world that they're like, oh my God, you gave up this great opportunity to do something like this. Whereas a lot of people who are in the world that aren't seeing the glamorized version of it are like, lawyers have really high rates they're very unhappy. They have high rates of depression, suicide, substance abuse issues. Like, I'm not saying every lawyer hates their job, but a lot of lawyers hate their job.
I think that's literally the point you're making right now. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
It's simply I think about this all the time. When I got the pitch to interview you, I was like, I think a lot about how people earn a living and their quality of life, and if they have to commute, and if they have to answer to some asshole, and if they're abused, or if they just hate their work, and it's exhausting, and they never get a nap, and they don't get to see, they get no time off. Like, I think about that stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And I just, if you can kind of do what you're doing and what I've been able to do and create your own world and be flexible, even though it's a lot of work, obviously, it's just a lifestyle that I think you were explaining it could be really easier and more fun.
And a lot of people, this is probably the number one comment that we get a real job. And I'm like, is the requirements of a real job all these terrible things? Like, in order to have a real job, do you have to be miserable? Is it because I don't have a boss?
Well, if you went and got a quote real job, I don't think you have kids.
No, I know.
If you went and got a real job and then you had kids, and say that job was paying pretty good, or even if you were a lawyer, then you have to pay a ton of money for daycare, and then that would cut into your salary. And in this case, you can make your video, you can do whatever you want, and now tell me that's not a real job. Like, you're winning if you're flexible around being with the people you love. You're winning. I just get triggered at get a real job. I'm like,
I'm not sure. Maybe you've at some point in your career, because I guess you're not in a traditional. People may have said people say that about all content creators, like people who do even YouTube, or they're like influencers, like, you guys don't have real jobs. It's because our job looks better to you, so now it's not a real job. I feel like a lot of people.
What is a real job? What
is a job? A job is anything you do to make a living.
Tell me your real job, and I'll tell you how you're getting shafted.
And so I asked these people this, and some people are like, well, something that makes a positive impact in society. And and I'm like, okay, so the CEOs of all these major corporations that are exploiting all their, do they ever? And I just keep pushing them. And then they kind of a lot of them don't really have an answer. Like, why is this not real work? Give me actual reason for it. Why is this not a real job? And people will throw things out, but then I'll make another example. I'm like, oh, so do they not work real jobs? And then they're like, oh no, that's a real job. Or, oh, a real job is you need to, actually be doing like, it can't be easy. I'm like, okay, so any job that is easy and you make good money off of, that's not a real job. Why? Isn't that what everybody wants? Like, are we just all going to pretend that we want? And some people do say, they're like, no, a real job is like something that like requires you to like put in blood, sweat, and tears. I'm like, okay, then I don't want a real job.
I wouldn't be interested in talking to that person for very long. But I guess you made me think of one more question there, which is when I was reading about like, OnlyFans and people who are doing it, there's this one woman married, 3 kids. I guess maybe they're like all teenagers. They play hockey. They live in the suburbs. She's on OnlyFans. And there's a fair question now about like, how do your boys, what if people find out that your mom is on OnlyFans? What if you someday do decide to have kids? Do you ever worry about, and do OnlyFans creators worry about, their kids and how they, because that's, no matter what your job is, you don't want your kid to get bullied as a result of your job. It's going to happen no matter what. But
for sure. And I can't speak for other OnlyFans creators, but I mean, I don't even want kids for probably like another 5, 6, 7 years. And then by the time they're old enough to even like, it's like, if I'm still popping on the internet by then, like I will consider that a great success of mine. And I feel like part of the thing I'm trying to fight is this stigma. And to fight it, you do have to be open about it. Like, what is actually the problem? And it's like, you see this all the time, like people that are like, oh my God, I feel so bad for the Kardashian kids. And I'm like, there's so many kids that are starving, suffer. The last kids I feel bad for are like the Kardashian kids, who's or have somebody that has a mom that has like had, a sex tape or has had explicit images online. Also, who knows where the internet's going to go in so many years. Like, so many women are doing this, and so many more women will probably end up doing stuff like this, that I think it's just going to become more normalized, and it's not going to be this big, like, shameful thing. I mean, the internet's going to be flooded with like everybody's pictures, I feel like.
Yeah. You're probably right. Who knows?
So I'm really not thinking about it, because by that, it'll be 20 years from now before I have a kid that could potentially go to school, that could potentially see my pictures from 2022. I mean, who knows what kind of world we're going to be living in by then anyway. And ideally by then I will be financially secure. I will be able to give my kids everything, and I'll be able to stay home with them, and I will have the complete freedom to live the kind of life and be the kind of mother I want to be, that I'm going to take that over me working a job that I hate and not having those opportunities.
About the money, I don't know how comfortable you feel, but like, are you making like, not, you don't have to tell me specific numbers, but do you make more and more every month?
Yes, I am making. So I was a lawyer. I had a great, nice 6-figure job, and I'm making what I used to make in a year and a month.
In a month?
Yeah. So when people are like, what are you going to do in 10 years? I'm like, I'll be okay.
You can make 6 figures in 1 month.
Yes.
And how much work? And
there are girls that make more. I mean, there are girls that, what's her name? Amaranth is like she's making $1 million a month.
And how much work is what, generally speaking, you're in a month, in a week, in a day? Are you making several videos? Is that?
No, so I have like a day where I focus on promo, and then a day I focus on content. So I kind of go back and forth. But I do put in 40 plus hours a week for sure. I would say for me, like the first maybe like 40, 50 a month is kind of easy. Like I don't have to do much, but to make more than that, I feel like I do have to put in the work, go live, et cetera. And it is this very like hustle culture, because it really is. The more time you put in, the more you'll get out of it. How do people, one more time, again, I don't understand OnlyFans. I should have asked this and I should have known it. How do people subscribe to your channel and they get a monthly payment like they do with me and podcasts and Patreon, and then they, when they send you their picture and they want you to evaluate it, that's something different in addition? They send it with like a tip. You can unlock certain content, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a subscription, you can send tips, you can unlock, so there's all kinds of different ways, and that's just on OnlyFans. But like I said, I run a Snapchat. You can pay to even do like a video call with me on there, et cetera. And so I take those payments in different places. So altogether, and it has grown and grown each month. So it wasn't like I was making this like forever, but I remember like my first few months, I got up to like 35, 40, and then like, that was with the double life. And I knew I was losing money by staying at that job because I could be making way more doing this. I was like, why am I losing money staying at a job I don't want? Because what? Because people's opinions, because it's socially more accepted, because I feel like a safety net, because everyone's like, what are you going to do in 10 years? I'm like, I hope I'm not sitting in an office in 10 years.
Seriously.
I hope I'm not here in 10 years.
You seem like you're probably pretty smart about money. You're not going and buying a Ferrari, are you?
No, I could be smarter, but no, I'm not buying a Ferrari. I'm buying a lot of shoes and bags.
Yeah, I was about to say, what are you wasting money on? Clothes, shoes, bags?
Clothes, shoes, bags. I'm a big fashion person, so but like I am, and that's also because I think, and that's one of the dangers of this is for young, like if I was 19 and I was making this, I would be making way worse decisions now than I'm 27. So there are girls that blow it, and there are girls that don't even so OnlyFans takes 20% and then they give you the rest, but you still have to pay taxes on it.
Right.
And a lot of girls don't even save enough for that. I think there is a danger in this kind of platform that is allowing people to make all this kind of money without having the financial literacy to like know,
you could also, and I just assume this when I'm looking at Instagram that you can, like, some people just travel for a living. They just go to beaches
and that's like that whole lifestyle. So there are OnlyFans girls that do that. I'm not doing that yet. I would love to.
Why don't you?
I think I'm just still trying to I left my job 6 months ago. I'm just trying to just figure out, like, get kind of situated. And then once I have like a set routine,
someone could hypothetically be like, dude, listen, my thing is waterfalls. I want you to go to Costa Rica for $10,000 and send me a waterfall.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a business, and that's why these people that travel, I mean, this is all like tax
write-offs. Yeah.
Write-offs, and you just go, and that's kind of like you're selling like this luxury. For some people, it's that. For some people, it's whatever your brand is, and anything you do and you put out there, any content you put out there with that is a life that people are living. And I would say I do know there's OnlyFans couples and like a family, and and that's how they live now. They just make content and they go and they travel and they make content together. I'm like, this is great. Like,
yeah, no, I gotta wrap this up because I have to go pitch my wife a couple ideas.
Yeah, no worries.
Hey, listen, how about we just for 1 month?
I mean, I will say they look like they're having the time of their lives. They look like they're not living with any regrets.
It's hilarious. That's great. Good for them. And good for you. I've
encountered actually a lot of them, and a lot of times they will reach out because they want me to come collaborate with them, which I haven't done, but that's what they do for now. And they both, like, you see couples that they're like, oh, I used to be a financial, I used to do this, and now we're just doing this. Wild.
Well, good for them and good for you. Congratulations on all of your success and your empowering message. And I really appreciate you taking all my questions, and good luck. Thank you very much, Jasmine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was so great to be here.
Well, what did you think of her? What did you think of OnlyFans? Maybe you're on it. What did you think of our conversation? I'd really like to hear what you thought. I like to try to be culturally aware of what's happening out there in the world. I don't want to get old to the point where I don't understand what young people are going through, especially because I have 2 daughters who are, as I told you, 15 and almost 18. I like to know what's happening in the world, from pornography and OnlyFans to politics and energy and climate and AI. I'm trying to understand as much of it as I can so that I can understand where we're at. It's all happening so rapidly, and it's hard for anybody to keep up. So if you're not, you are certainly forgiven, but that's the kind of conversation I wanted to have with someone on that issue. And when I saw that pitch come in, I thought, yeah, let me think about this. I ran it past a few people before I did it, and everybody thought it would be good. So I hope you liked it. I hope you liked her. Very, very interesting. And tomorrow I'll be back again with another great guest. I've got a great conversation with longtime listener and host of his own podcast, Pops on Hops. The great Dr. Barry Hummel will join me this week. Also, I'll begin my series with young folks, including 19-year-old Lucy Solomon, who I have a great conversation with, and many more to come. So thank you very much for tuning in today. And whenever you do, it is Taint Week. I'll continue to post conversations, but a little lighter on the show because I'm going to be pre-taping these so we can go skiing. Thank you very much for your support. I can't do it without you. Go to standupwithpete.com or patreon.com/Pete Dominic right now to subscribe to the show or even upgrade your subscription before the new year. Looking forward to hearing from you, and that's all I've got. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
She's of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well, and it'll tell you not to run there.